Out of all the characters in JJS, Haruta is one of the most gimmicky for sure. He's a glass cannon, he has multiple evasives, his swordless mode has a parry, he's a puppeteer, he's rewarded heavily for abusing something called frame traps, which in JJS terms is when your combo is intentionally green so that the opponent tries to M1 you out of it, but it's not green enough for their M1 to hit you before their next attack lands, and so you counter hit them. In general, he's rewarded for counter hitting, and his puppet can attack for him even when he's stunned, or dead. He's also incredibly strong when used right, and underwhelming when used wrong. Haruta is one of the most deceptive characters in the game on multiple levels, both in that he seems like he's a basic M1 merchant with some nice combos if you don't use him with the right mindset, and in that his playstyle lets you mix people up so well and plays very hard around tricking your opponent into unblocking, tricking them into blocking, and kind of just playing mind games with them to land hits and chip their HP down into nothingness. He's extremely complicated with a lot of depth to how you play him, and he's also insanely high risk, high reward, both with green combos that have just enough of a gap in them to let you trick the opponent into attacking back so you can get a free counter hit, or in how his swordless mode can really easily start combos for you at the cost of getting you killed instantly if you mess up using it. He's one of the most enjoyable characters in the game to play, constantly switching between M1 Merchant mode and effing Invincible mode, where one mode punishes the opponent for not attacking Haruta and turtling up too much, while the other punishes them for attacking Haruta and not turtling up. He's such a well-designed character and also one that demands a lot from the user as well as the opponent. The user has to know when to use which mode to score a free hit, and guessing wrong will end up with them stuck inside the opponent's combo. Meanwhile, the opponent has to notice that the Haruta has changed modes and change the way they approach Haruta accordingly. Notice the sword isn't in his hand? Better press that F key, buddy. Now Haruta has the sword, better start fighting back or else you're gonna turn into a sponge. Haruta is extremely well designed, and this video is for me to gush over him because he is such a cool character with so much depth. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe since it helps me continue to make content and you get to know more about your favorite JJS characters. Now, let's get into the video. First, let's talk about the whole miracle gimmick. You start with 3 miracles, which are these triangles above your awakening bar, and can hold up to 6. You get them for interrupting people, doing a perfect dodge in swordless mode, or doing a taunt in swordless mode on someone who isn't ragdolled by the time the taunt ends. You know if you got one if you hear a ding sound. 3 miracles are consumed when you take lethal damage to heal you for about 10 HP, and you can also consume 3 miracles to perform an evasive even if you don't have your evasive off cooldown. This, along with how his sword off mode practically makes him invincible, are what help him survive his terrible 70 HP. How valuable miracles are though is a bit matchup dependent. Some characters like Yuji do not care if you have evasive and will punch you right through it, and so your miracles are worthless there. On the other hand, there's characters like Megami who need to waste ragdoll cancel to function, and can even get punished super hard for it. And against those people, those extra evasives make their life miserable. Moving on, let's talk about the modes. Haruta has 2 modes that are important to how he plays: Sword On and Sword Off. The simplest way to put it is that Sword On is your offensive stance, and Sword Off is your defensive stance. But it is definitely a lot more in-depth than that. Sword On has 4 moves at its disposal, one of which transitions you to Sword Off mode. Those moves are Ambush, Backstab, Trip, and Cheap Shots. In this mode, Haruta is a very generic M1 merchant, with some pretty neat depth in how his combos in this mode work, since he can do a lot of stuff like hit people on wake up, or extend ragdoll, or make it difficult for them to block against him. Ambush is the first move. How it works depends. Normally, it does a quick slash forward that bypasses block, deals damage, and ragdolls the opponent while knocking them a short distance away. If you jump and use it, you'll move forward with it. Finally, if you use it on someone who's ragdolled on the floor, you'll stab into the ground. Pressing it twice will follow up with 3 extra stabs. Man, this feels like a reference to something. And at the end, both players will be ended neutral. The move's good as a guard break, or as free combo damage if we're talking about the normal variant. The ground stab version is really neat as a finisher too, and I also like using it when the opponent is helpless, such as when you've landed your ultimate. Anyways, Backstab. Backstab's interesting. It bypasses guard, and if you stab someone from the front, it ends both of you neutral. If you stab someone from the back, it stuns them long enough to connect into an M1 or any other move. However, it does not reset M1s, at least not on its own. Since it bypasses guard, that makes the move amazing for wake up, and so if you do 4 M1s and stab them in the back when they get up, you can extend that with 4 more M1s. Additionally, if you just delay your 4th M1 in a combo, and then side dash backstab them, it'll also reset your M1s, but this makes your combo green. The move's not the best in neutral, and it's generally better for wake up combos, but it serves that role really well. Trip, which is a quick kick that ragdolls, is very much like an M1, and it doesn't really do much for you in neutral unless you're in swordless mode. In swordless mode, it is a good last-ditch tool. You can side dash and trip someone's back to let you land your swordless mode on someone who started holding F, though your forward dash can do the same thing. And if you somehow ended up with all your moves besides trip on cooldown, well, it's the only thing you got in that case. Pretty good too actually off dodge, since dodging into trip is true. Otherwise, it's mostly for combos, since it can push people into the hand or extend ragdolls, and you can kick dead bodies for awakening, since it doesn't go on cooldown if you kick a dead person. The latter is really strong in ranked especially, since you can get a full quarter of your awakening bar off of just kicking a corpse, which lets you get maybe 2 ultimates per ranked match, though I doubt you'd need that many. Finally, for sword moves, he has Cheap Shot, which throws the sword forward. This is blockable, but it can also hit ragdoll. If it gets blocked, the sword will stop in place. Otherwise, it keeps flying forward a set distance. Either way, you enter swordless mode, and the sword will deploy itself wherever it ended up. This move also ragdolls on hits. Super solid projectile that can also confirm the dirty play to turn it into an easy 15 damage. It's very strong for interrupting people too, since it comes out so quickly, and if a Hanami, for example, used their Root Storm from too far for you to punish, and missed it, Cheap Shot should be able to land. Afterwards, even possibly leading into the 2 swordless moves if you landed it from enough distance. I do want to give a word of warning though, even though it transitions you into swordless mode, this should not be the main way you transition between your modes, and I'll get to how you should be mode swapping in the playstyle section. This trap was part of why my experience was so bad initially, and if you fix yourself on this move as a mode swapper, rather than as a quick long-range poke it is, you might find yourself getting comboed more than you wish. Especially if you land it at close range, you really want to knock the opponent into the sort of a forward dash, or just immediately recall it with dirty play, because that sword goes far enough that your opponent can ragdoll cancel and attack you while the sword is still coming back, in a state where you can't really do a thing. It's a good move, but be careful. Now for a quick explanation on mode switching. To do it, you either use Cheap Shot or press R. The targeting is where it gets weird. If you use Cheap Shot and it gets blocked or hits nobody, it will lay there and it won't target anyone. If you hit Cheap Shot on someone, it will automatically start targeting them. If you press R with your cursor on somebody, this has a pretty long range, the hand will start targeting them. If you press R with your cursor on nobody, the hand will start returning towards you. Dropping the sword to set it on somebody is pretty much instant, but having it return towards you takes a while, since you need the sword to touch you when you're not stunned, and it needs to make pretty good, solid contact, so it won't pick up if you dash over it or something. Now let's talk about swordless moves. Ankle Cutter is a main one, and this is probably the best move in Haruta's entire kit. It makes the sword stab forward towards the target direction, dealing good damage with good range, and the only weakness is that it's 360 blockable, and it can get jumped. Still, it's so quick that usually people have to block off prediction, which isn't that easy, and it ragdolls for a while, setting up very strong combos. It's the main combo starter of your kit, the most reliable get out of jail free card, and in general, your best move. High Time on the other hand is like the inferior sibling. It trades horizontal reach for vertical reach, which you never need. The hitbox kind of sucks, and so it's inconsistent for bailing you out, though it can do that job well, just that it'll struggle if the person comboing you moves around too much, and you have to time it for when the hand is right at their feet, because if the hand starts going back and forth, it's gonna miss. It's also nowhere near as good as Ankle Cutter for combo starting because of that low range, and so it tends to get used more as a backup get out of jail free card, or as extra damage you combo into after you used Ankle Cutter. Dirty Play is just your sword recall, and it's really fun to use. It's your quickest way to get back into sword mode. The projectile forces the opponent to pay attention to where the sword is and block, and it can interrupt people rushing you down. Very powerful and versatile tool on the defensive end, but there's not really that much to say about it. Finally, there's a bit of discussion about its 2 unique mechanics in swordless mode: perfect dodging and taunting. Perfect dodging is done with M1, and is the only way you can avoid a lot of punishes or moves. Plus, it gets you a miracle. However, it's extremely difficult to do, and for some reason, doing multiple in a row gets really buggy, so you ideally want to dodge and dash away, rather than trying to be Goku and perfect dodge 5 attacks in a row. Taunting, on the other hand, baits people into unblocking so you can hit them with swordless moves, but it also leaves you super vulnerable, and if someone predicts that you're gonna ankle cutter when they go to interrupt you, and then blocks, blup. I'm not saying taunt's bad, but it's difficult to utilize well. It can sometimes get you an extra miracle if you taunt someone before they get up from ragdoll, and dash away before your taunt so they can't gap close, but the issue is that so many characters just released who can punish you for not blocking from halfway across the map, and so I find a taunt to be way more trouble than it's worth personally, especially since your reward is just one miracle. Now, enough about explanations, let's talk about playstyle and tips. Haruta's playstyle can be summarized as this: appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. Sun Tzu. I actually don't know if he said that, my source is Goodreads. Anyways, that's at the essence of how Haruta plays. Haruta relies heavily on deceiving the opponent and tricking them into playing incorrectly against either of his two modes. When taken alone, both Sword Mode and Swordless Mode suck. Sword Mode is just a generic M1 merchant with really bad neutral, and you will get massacred by a Higuruma who just presses 1 on their keyboard if you start using this mode too much. Meanwhile, Swordless Mode literally cannot do anything against the F key. If they turtle up, you are useless. However, on the flip side, generic M1 merchants are awesome at dealing with people who turtle up. Side dash M1 bypass them, and you got yourself a combo. That, or you can jump scare them with ambush aerial, because it bypasses guard. You do need good fundamentals to do this. Haruta has 0 crutches when he's in this mode, and is entirely reliant on his M1 trading, but if you got someone shaken up and holding the F key a little bit too much because they don't want to get their ankles cut, well, that's free pickings. Meanwhile, the only way to counter Swordless Mode is to block. Ankle Cutter has pretty neat range, and as long as the sword is somewhere near the target, it'll hit. And that ragdoll connects into high time, and into all the rest of Haruta's moves, for a ton of damage. It's insanely good pressure that forces the opponent to hold the F key, and try to bait it out. If they get too greedy, and try comboing Haruta, they'll get their ankles cut, and lose maybe 40 HP from the ensuing combo. So, how do you quickly swap between these modes to strike where the enemy is weak? Well, it's pressing R. Pressing R with your cursor on someone will immediately drop the sword so you can ankle cutter them. As long as you press R before you get hit, that sword will then be there to bail you out, locked onto the target. As long as you don't notice it, most people will reasonably try to attack you, either just straight up M1ing you, going for the side dash M1, or pressing some button on their keyboard if they're one of the 3 brain-dead stooges. Whatever the case, that gives you a prime opportunity to use ankle cutter since they aren't blocking. And once that's done, whatever damage you took from the hits they landed on you will probably be made up by the damage you inflict on them from your combo. Notably though, it's a lot harder to get out of Sword Mode than it is to get into it. To retrieve the hand, you have 2 choices. Use Dirty Play, which is the preferred one, but can get interrupted, especially by smart opponents if you don't use it in a combo, or press R without a target and wait for the hand to crawl back to you, which can take a while depending on distance and leaves you as a bit of a sitting duck during that time period, since the hand has awful accuracy when it's not locked onto a target. Usually you'll be near your hand though, since that's where Haruta's hand is most effective. This lets you pretty easily dash back, press R to retrieve the hand, which really shouldn't take that long, and get right back in to start tearing down whatever turtle shell the opponent put up. It's very powerful. Of course, I say all of this, but it's not like there aren't weaknesses. First and foremost, his M1 Merchant mode is kinda just that. M1 Merchant mode. If you do end up getting hit in it, you're gonna eat the combo without any sword to bail you out. It's also the mode that you don't want to be fighting in. This isn't to say you shouldn't use it, but judgment is important here, and generally you should be starting with your swordless moves more than trying to get up close and personal in M1. Your sword mode is more of a bait to get people into the rhythm of attacking you and comboing you, so that when you drop the sword and they don't notice, they leave themselves open for the swordless moves. It's really bad as a primary method of approach because it has no gap closers, and the lack of moves for neutral makes it extremely linear. You got a close range block break and a decent projectile, and that's it. So many characters nowadays have ways to completely cheese M1 trades, and Sword Mode is a below average M1 trader who only gets a shine when the opponent F-holds and forgets how to M1 trade because your swordless modes gave them trauma. So here's my game plan. I walk up close, trade a few M1s, drop the sword, they hit me, I ankle cutter them, they usually ragdoll cancel, I dash away and use Dirty Play to recall the sword. If they go for something risky to try and punish me, not having a block button, Then I have my sword back to forward dash them, land some M1s, and maybe drop my sword before doing high time into chip or some other combo. If they don't, no worries. Ragdoll cancel is gone, and you just gotta dance around in neutral till angle cutter is back, drop the sword, do it again, but this time with a massive damage combo. As strong as Swordless mode is though, it has its weaknesses. The big one is that if your sword is far away, such as if you threw cheap shot and missed, or even hit it at close range, then neither of the moves can do a thing and you gotta immediately dirty play, or try to run towards the sword. The other is that some characters have ways to lift you into the air, or combos that make you travel around a lot, which make it incredibly difficult for the hand to catch up and bail you out. The biggest example is Mei, and in general she's a terrible matchup for Haruta because of how many moves in her kit need to be blocked, even though Haruta can't block in Swordless mode and has to rely on his difficult to execute parries. Also, if you ankle cutter in high time up close, and the opponent ragdoll cancels that before you can retrieve the sword, you're kinda cooked. Like, you can try to parry and dash away, but when both of those moves are on cooldown, you are defenseless, and your goal should be to get back into sword mode, where you can at least stand your ground and block as soon as possible. This in general makes Haruta a character who is extremely demanding to play. Any slip up where the opponent adapts to the playstyle you're doing can land you inside a combo, and with that 70 HP, that hurts a lot. If you don't switch between his stuff properly, you will lose games because neither mode is that strong. But as long as you remember to appear weak when you're strong, and strong when you're weak, you will win a lot of games. Anyways, that's all I've got to say about Haruta. I've never seen one in ranked despite how strong this character has the potential to be, though he is difficult to pilot and has a more strategic playstyle that isn't as widely appealing as your generic rushdown Yuji, Mei, Higgy, whatever. So it's not surprising. Still, he is one of my favorite characters now that I understand how to use him, and is a masterclass design-wise. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to subscribe since it really does help me out a lot. I'm Noob Eternally, thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you next time in another one. Bye.